Thanks, Paul, for the introduction. Again, my name is Rich Mendis, and I'm joined by Lisa Faccio, and we're going to present how we helped bars and restaurants, some of our mutual customers, adapt to this COVID-19 situation by innovating and going digital to serve customers who were impacted in this particular industry with innovative technology. So pretty excited to be here. Very quick introduction on our companies. I work for BrandMuscle. You may not have heard of this company, but we are the service provider behind many of the largest brands. We serve typically brands that sell products through channels. So if you think about large insurance companies, automotive companies, consumer goods, alcohol beverage companies, etc., these brands all sell through channel partners, whether they're insurance agents, automotive dealers, bars and restaurants, grocery stores, channel partners like that. And so many of these large brands, while they spend a lot of money in marketing, they're typically doing marketing at the national level, and the corporate marketing teams don't really have the staff to be able to scale down to cover all of the insurance agents, bars, restaurants, grocery stores, automotive dealerships, etc. So these large brands work with companies like BrandMuscle to help take their brand and their brand message and disperse it through all their local channel partners and help them do marketing. So we're in a space that the analysts call through channel marketing automation. We serve about 300 of these large brands, 1 million local businesses, and in particular, working with Breakthru Beverage, we serve quite a few bars and restaurants of various different sizes, and we're the largest producer of menus and menu books, and we'll talk to you a little bit about that. Lisa will share with you some interesting things about the alcohol and beverage industry that you probably don't know, and will be interesting to learn. So with that, I'll hand it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Rich. I'm Lisa Faccio. I work for a company called Breakthru Beverage. We're a distribution company of beer, wine, and spirits. We operate across the United States and Canada with about 7,000 associates. We represent many supplier brands such as Diageo, Gallo Wines, Brown-Forman, Red Bull, and the portfolio goes on, and represent about $5 billion in annual sales of these brands. So something you may not know about the beverage industry is we're a three-tiered system. It first starts with the supplier. That supplier owns those brands. The supplier then sells to a beverage distributing company like us, and then it's our job to go out and sell to licensed retailers that sell spirits, beer, wine, and spirits. It is our job to sell it, truck it, get it in distribution, and make sure it's in stock, as well as market the brands to keep them selling through those venues. The third tier in the system is the licensed retailer. That could be either a bar or restaurant, which we call on-premise, meaning you consume on-premise, or off-premise would be grocery stores, liquor stores, places that you cannot serve and consume those products at.
And Lisa, people may not know this, but this system is sort of is kind of regulated in the sense that a consumer has to buy through a retailer and a retailer has to buy through a distributor, correct?
That's correct. And it's all for regulations of alcohol since Prohibition, how it's all been regulated. So to connect the dots between BrandMuscle and Breakthru Beverage, we work closely together to create what's called point of sale. Point of sale is all about visibility and marketing. That could be menus, coasters, banners, bottleneckers, anything that helps drive visibility and sales of these brands that we represent for our suppliers. Menus are the number one asset for restaurateurs to gain sales and efficiency. And for us, it's the number one tool to drive our suppliers' brands through those restaurateurs. Breakthru and BrandMuscle have worked together about 15 years, And we've created all kinds of things to look good in that restaurant space over the years. So what happens when COVID hits? So COVID is pretty well almost devastated many of our on-premise sector of our business. $120 billion in revenue impact to the hospitality industry just through May. $33 billion in alcohol sales. 49% less alcohol spends through the on-premise bars and restaurants. 57% of our consumers are telling us that they don't want to go back into a restaurant because of anxiety of safety. And, note here, menus are one of our key promotional items that I mentioned both to the restaurateur as well as us, is considered unsanitary. So fast forward through all this is how do we combat that issue for our restaurateurs? So Breakthru Beverage instantly went into solution mode and how can we consult and assist our restaurants and bars out there. We started in with the whole to-go concept and working and advising through our states and restaurants on alcohol to-go laws. Many states changed their laws after COVID hit to allow restaurateurs to be able to sell cocktails and wine to go. So think about things like beverage kits, meal kits, margaritas to go, wine to go, ready to drink cocktails. Those were all solutions that we instantly jumped into. As bars started to open, it then becomes safety. How do we help convey to the customer that it is safe to come back into those restaurants? Prepared cocktails, screw cap wines, ready to drink, disposable menus. And then we get to digital menus. We instantly thought about QR codes and digital menus, but how do we quickly and efficiently do this? And quite honestly, that's where BrandMuscle came knocking on the door, and here we are today.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, it's been obviously many industries have been affected, but I think the hospitality industry, in particular, travel, hotels, restaurants, bars, have been disproportionately impacted. So, it's certainly, working with distributors and suppliers like Breakthru and others, certainly our business was impacted as well. And so we stepped back and thought about, what is it we can do to help both our distributor and supplier customers as well as the restaurants and bars. And when we took a look at what they're doing, as they started getting guidance from the various states, the CDC and other organizations, one of the recommendations was that they use digital menus. Now, QR codes and digital menus have been around for some time, but many of you can attest to the fact that when you've walked into a restaurant or a bar, your natural inclination is either you're presented with a menu or you go and reach for a physical menu. And so there are many establishments that just have not adopted that yet, right? The second issue is that those solutions, and there are many that exist on the market today, none of them incorporate distributors and suppliers into the mix, right? So the menu being the number one promotional item, what you may not realize is that the order of the drinks and the appearance of that menu and how it's presented to the consumer has a big impact at the point of sale of when a consumer is ultimately making that decision, right? The high level spend of the chief marketing officer to to promote a brand on a television is something that sticks into your mind, but it's ultimately not until you're either at the liquor store or in a bar or restaurant placing an order with the bartender that you convert that brand impression into a sale. And so if none of these digital menu solutions offered a way for distributors and suppliers to participate, that was a problem. So what BrandMuscle did is we launched a solution that would provide the restaurants and bars with a very simple, easy to use digital menu solution, made it painless for the consumer to be able to scan a QR code and view a menu, but also allowed the distributors and the suppliers to participate in this ecosystem and help the restaurants and bars with promotions now in the digital world. So we launched a solution called SpotMenus about 90 days ago. And I'm going to allow you guys to do a live interactive demo. So if you have your smartphone, keep it handy, and we'll kind of get you a live demo here in a minute. But essentially, what this does is it allows consumers to scan a SpotMenus sign, and we print signs for these restaurants as welcome kits so they can quickly get up and running. It's very secure, simple, and convenient because the business model that we have with the distributors and the suppliers is not, it covers kind of our revenue. We don't really need to charge a lot of money to the restaurants and bars for this. So this is a fairly low cost solution, and it allows the consumers to scan these QR codes and bring up the menus instantly. There's nothing to download or do any registration. Also, importantly, in this particular time during COVID, a lot of the restaurants are updating their menus frequently. And so doing disposable menus and other things, which we also provide, is still not completely cost effective. So a digital menu solution like SpotMenus allows the restaurants to go ahead and easily update their menu items, enter text menu versions as well as images, so that people with visual impairments can leverage their cell phone or mobile technology to kind of read the menus or zoom in, things like that. And we also support the concept of promotional items on a menu through the distributors and the suppliers. So we kind of brought all the pieces together, and the adoption has been great. Again, the topic of this overall ANA conference or one-day session is about taking different steps, innovative steps to doing commerce with consumers, and certainly this is one example where some innovation was needed at the bar and restaurant level, otherwise commerce wasn't going to happen at all. And so the adoption is kind of a reflection that what we created is something that's useful. So the distributors have been going out and promoting SpotMenus, and we have about 2,500 locations around the country using it today. And this is, not all the distributors are fully back yet and promoting it. So this was, just literally in the last 30 to 60 days, kind of where the adoption came. And we've loaded about 5,700 digital menus, and we're presenting almost a digital menu every second. I just went and checked in, and there's actually over 4 million menu loads now. So almost every second we're displaying a digital menu through SpotMenus. Here's an example of a typical, customer of Lisa's Breakthroughs and of BrandMuscle, probably a little bit larger than your average, perhaps. This is a group of 9 restaurants in Chicago, a company called the 50/50 Restaurant Group. They launched in June on SpotMenus, and I was speaking with the owner of the restaurant, and he was looking for a solution that he could go completely exclusively digital on. So in this example, this is a restaurant that is fairly trafficked in kind of, downtown Chicago, a set of restaurants, a lot of heavy traffic. They were very worried about inserting too much technology or complexity into their commerce path, right, doing business with consumers. But they went 100% digital with SpotMenus and are achieving great success here. They've displayed, now it's about 250,000 menus through this platform. And again, you can see some quotes on the right. We did a webinar with the Illinois State Restaurant Association with Scott, who's their co-founder, and it was interesting to hear him talk about, how they're, as a restaurant owner, you don't want to insert any friction between the consumer and the waiter, right? You're just trying to get their order, help them have a good time at a restaurant. They're not really thinking about technology. And so what he liked about the solution was that it was kind of, easily blended into the background and allowed the consumer to just painlessly kind of get their menu, take a look, and place the order with the waiter. So nice little example of the use of the technology. So I promised you a live demo. So if you guys have your smartphones, you can go ahead and bring them up and open up your camera and point your camera at the screen at this QR code, and it should pop up a little notification saying that there's a SpotMenus menu available. If you tap that, it'll bring up a screen in your browser, and what you should see is something like what's on the left there, which is a sample menu for a fictitious restaurant called Gervais and Wine. And if you look at the bottom, it says 3 menus available. If you tap that little button, you can see how it can pop up other menus, including cocktails. which is to the point Lisa made earlier, where again that promotional positioning of specific brands and suppliers makes a big difference when a consumer is ordering. They can also switch on the top right. If you can see that button, you can tap that to view the text menu, and you can switch between image and text. And so we allow the restaurants to kind of manage not just uploading a visual image of their menu, but also enter in the text items that consumers can browse. So very, very easy, quick and painless. That's the experience, being able to scan and bring up within literally seconds the menu so that you can view and go through it, right? To the restaurant owner or a manager at the restaurant, we provide a web-based application where they can log in and manage their menus. And ultimately, we printed physical menus for 60,000 restaurants and locations last year. Many thousand of those were through Breakthru clients. But as Lisa can attest to, we really don't know when we give a physical menu to a restaurant and bar how many times that menu was viewed by a consumer, what time of day, etc. With spot menus now, we're capturing detailed impression data on how many times the menu was viewed, what time of day, whether it was a repeat visitor, and interesting information that is valuable to several people in this ecosystem, right? It's valuable to a restaurant because they can see how their business is doing week over week, year over year, month over month. They can see, how they're doing, on an aggregate basis against some of the other, restaurants in their zip code. Distributors like Breakthru will know how many times menus, brands, and suppliers were viewed. Suppliers themselves can get this data from the distributors to see how many times their brands were viewed. And so it's very, it's nice to kind of close that loop on the promotion to know that the menu design that we all worked on to position those brands is now being utilized, and exactly how many times and when and where is really valuable data. And of course, we're not going to just be stopping there, but from a marketing perspective, we're going to make spot menus as a platform, a solution that other incentives and offers can be made to the restaurants from folks like the distributors and the suppliers. So I'll let Lisa kind of cover another example of how Breakthru is thinking about using this type of a platform.
Great, thanks, Rich. This is just an example. We put this together to share with a customer. The idea is on the left, that is a static clean. That is something that BrandMuscle has made for us for years. It's almost like a sticker. It goes on the table, and in this case, there would be a QR code or spot menu code. The customer would be able to click on that QR code of their phone, and it would bring up a promotional feature. This promotional feature can be changed monthly, daily. It's a very simple process, as Rich mentioned, through their portal. So features and menus can change very quickly in this case, but the static clean can remain the same. The QR code remains the same, and that QR code or that static clean can be wiped down and disinfected along with the table. So it's a very sanitary way to put that spot menu QR code out there for consumers to be able to have the experience with the digital menu.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to reiterate that Lisa mentioned is that QR code that we generate from spot menus is what's known as a dynamic QR code. And what that means is there's some QR code technologies which is known as static, which is where there's a web address hard coded into that, and it has to always go to the same address. We have what's known as dynamic QR codes, where you can change the information that's displayed when someone scans that QR code. And that's what allows us to do things like monthly features, or allows the restaurateur to change a menu and instantly make that available to the next consumer that scans the QR code. So it's pretty interesting. Again, not revolutionary technology, but an interesting application of the technology to this particular problem. So, of course, as we talk to restaurants and folks like Lisa at Breakthru who have a lot of imagination of how to use this platform, as well as suppliers, we're planning to make this go a little bit further than just displaying the menus. So, for example, on the restaurant and bar side, COVID has introduced an interesting situation where many restaurants that previously that never took reservations or didn't have wait lists, because of low density guidelines and municipal laws during COVID, some of these restaurants are having to have people wait for them to be seated, and so many of them don't have sophisticated point of sale systems that have waitlist capabilities. So we are building a waitlist capability into SpotMenus that will allow the restaurant to display a waitlist component at the top of their menu. The consumer can just put in their cell phone number and join the wait list and get paged when they're ready to be seated. For distributors like Breakthru, we like to see this evolve to become a relationship platform between the distributor sales rep and the restaurant and bar accounts, so they can see how their businesses are doing, get them point of sale materials as needed, and help them kind of continue to grow their business. And for suppliers, of course, there's an ability now to enable them to provide proactively their brands and other point of sale material information to the restaurants and bars, and have the bars kind of request that through the distributors. So in a collaborative way, be able to reach more accounts directly than they ever have before. So in summary, as Lisa and I were talking about our lessons learned and what we could share with you guys who may not be in this particular industry, I think there's a couple of high-level takeaways that anyone can benefit from as they're thinking about the different paths to commerce that they are looking to transform or innovate or digitize. Firstly, I think there's certainly always a desire to apply technology for the sake of it, or to look for new technologies. And sometimes, and what we found in this particular case is, there might be existing technology that can be applied in a slightly different model to gain traction, right? So we took an existing, at this point, fairly dated technology now, QR code scanning, and applied it to a digital menu management system that also incorporated promotional menus from suppliers and distributors. And so the application of the technology to this particular problem was an interesting solution to get traction. The other thing to consider whenever you're rolling out new technology or trying to do some commerce innovation in the commerce path of doing business with the consumer, is to think about how the entire ecosystem can benefit from the change, right? So what is the tangible benefit to all parties? And if there is one to all parties, then the adoption is going to be pretty fast, right? So for example, in this particular issue, we had several different players in the market. We have consumers that want to feel safe going back into restaurants, reduce the anxiety and concern around safety that Lisa mentioned earlier. That's a statistic we saw. We also have restaurants that want to certainly get consumers back into their place of establishment so they can do commerce with it. And they obviously need to provide a way for consumers to look at what the options are to order. And so they need a way to provide a digital menu or a touchless menu. And finally, suppliers and distributors, in the absence of these physical menus, still need a way to promote their brands and products through menus. And so they benefit from being able to participate in that digital menu display system. And so because there was, kind of a benefit, a tangible benefit to each player in the ecosystem, this particular solution gained rapid traction. And we're hoping that even beyond COVID, we don't think paper menus are going away necessarily, but in talking with Lisa, I think she'll agree that this may have accelerated the adoption of technology, that now digital menus will always be here to stay alongside paper. So that was those were the lessons learned from our perspective, and thank you very much for your time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I think we're going to be opening up for questions in a moment.